Hi everyone, I did my book review on culturally responsive teaching the brain, which was written by Zaretta Hammond, and it's an eye-opening resource for many new educators as it helps better understand how students interact with one another in the classroom. The purpose of the book is to help support educators and how they can bring pedagogy, equity, and brain-based learning together in their own classrooms. There are three main points in the book. The first main point is how to help dependent learners develop into independent learners so that they can be more independent and think critically for themselves. The second main point is how culture can affect the way children learn and build relationships with one another and the people around them. The third point is the act of self-reflection and how it can help a child progress. This goes for both the student and the teacher as they can both learn from one another. She emphasizes the importance of turning a dependent learner into an independent learner. Quote from the book is that classroom studies document the fact that underdeserved English learners, poor students, and students of color routinely receive less instruction and higher order skills development than other students. So this is a chart that was taken straight from the book. An example of a dependent learner is that they are someone who depends on the teacher to carry most of the cognitive load of a task, and this is something that is consistent and they don't routinely think for themselves, and she wants to turn a dependent learner into someone who relies on the teacher to only carry some of the cognitive load at certain times, and she wants a student to learn to think critically for themselves, as this can help them become dependent in many other areas. Culturally responsive teaching is an approach for educators to use to help students improve their learning skills. This approach involves using what the student already knows and then developing on top of those concepts to promote progression. So if a student has an end goal to learn division, you would start small at a base to teach them addition, subtraction, then multiplication, and then division. So you start small and set goals, and then you have an end goal. So there's steps to get there. She also emphasizes the importance of culture in the classroom. So while students might be different at the surface and shallow at levels, at the root of different cultures, there are common values, worldviews, and practices that form these archetypes. So doing so, understanding the patterns within cultures helps unite people or children within the classroom, which can make culturally responsive teaching more achievable for teachers in a diverse setting. So this allows teachers to not have to understand the little its and bits and pieces of all the cultures, because there's so much to learn, but understand the basis of how the cultures relate to one another, and it helps create a unity within the classroom. She also then goes on to discuss how culture affects the brain. So learning will be more effective if processed using the common cultural learning aids, stories, music, and repetition. So a person's culture can affect how they learn, and if they know their culture well, it can improve their learning experience as they develop from their prior knowledge that they have achieved from the comfort of their own home. So things that they have learned from their culture at home or events can help a child learn and progress in many other areas, because it helps build a foundation for other things that they may learn in life. The third thing she discussed was self-reflection. An example of the self-reflection that she talked about is formative assessments. So this is the process of using simple tools to determine how well content has been learned so that the learner can make adjustments to his learning moves in the moment. So the assessment helps by developing data on what the student may understand or not understand, and it will help determine the next learning objectives for the student or what they need to work on before they move on. As part of self-reflection, some of the benefits is the assessment measures the progress of the child. And the next thing is ongoing feedback cycles help strengthen the learning partnership between students and teachers as they work together. So if you look at the assessment that you just gave the child, You can see what they did well on, and then you can go on from there. Or if you see that they need more help on a certain concept, you work with them. And with that, you go back and forth as you help what they need to work on. And it helps build and strengthen the relationship and the connection between the student and the teacher. Another benefit is that it promotes progression as you learn from your mistakes, and then you can fix those mistakes and then progress forward. Some strengths in the book is that the author thoroughly developed on the topics, and one of the topics is culture and how it positively affects the brain. The second thing that was very helpful in the book is the informative charts. So as I provided in the beginning, I compared a dependent learner to an independent learner. So she added a lot of charts, which I found very helpful. Along the lines of charts, she also provided a blank chart that is helpful for teachers. So one of the examples is providing the strengths and weaknesses of the child, and you can keep track of their progress. So I thought that was very helpful. At the end of the book, she also provided a glossary to help if you didn't want to go back or just to find a definition of a topic, you could just go to the glossary. An example of this would be culturally responsive teaching, so the definition would be there in the back. Or another example was formative assessments, that was also in the glossary. Some weaknesses in the book were the use of citations. There were definitely citations to help support her, but there were not enough citations to support the evidence that she used within the book. And I also found a weakness was the expansion of how to meet the needs of diverse learners. I think she could have incorporated strategies of how to teach students in specific ways and strategies to specifically teach diverse learners, and tips and skills to help teachers within their own classrooms themselves. I would say this book is for new educators and professionals because I found some information in the book that I already knew of, and I don't think this book would be very beneficial for veteran educators or teachers who have been teaching for many years. I think it's a good foundation for new teachers. I like how she elaborated on the concept of culture being more manageable for teachers, because I think it can be very overwhelming for educators as they walk into a room and they're students of many different cultures, and you may think, how do I meet the needs of so many different children of all different backgrounds? So I thought it was helpful to only focus on how students can be united and understand the basis of their cultures and their worldviews and values and bring those together and help unite the class as a whole. I love the act of self-reflection because for oneself, whether it's a student or a teacher, because I think it's very important and it helps for the teacher or the student to progress in their learning experiences. I love how the interaction between students, and personally, I think I would use the form of interaction among peers as a form of reflection, so that's something that I would do that she did not discuss in the book, because I think students can also learn from their peers' mistakes and they could learn from one another as well. Something else I personally would do would be to focus on equity within the classroom and not just meet the needs of them as a whole, but to focus on the individual learning needs of specific children for themselves, to meet the needs of individual students themselves